Hi, Søren. This is your feedback for task number 2 in regards to coin operations and air power. I'm going to go into structure and organization and about your paragraphs um, as per my presentation the first time that we met. So go back and look at it if I use terms that are not immediately obvious to you. Some of those will be described in that PowerPoint. But before I do that, my overall impression of your English is that it's very fluent and coherent. Good vocabulary. You have this really good knack for writing very straightforward English without being too simplistic. And you also have, I think, developed a way of writing where you vary your sentences and you write in a kind of sort of everyday kind of language, but it never gets simplistic, and that's a really, really good feature of your language, I think, especially for this type of assignment. So that works very well for you. Um, in terms of the structure, obviously also works very well, I think. Um, I need more of an introduction to the text as a text. You do that thing where you kind of just go into the first task and you just begin. What would be good is if you kind of frame the whole thing, both 1 and 2, and say this is what's going to happen. This is obviously not sort of a super academic kind of text, so we just need maybe 3, 5, 6 lines that tells me how are you going to arrive at your conclusion, just so that you kind of signpost along the way how you arrive from A to B, basically B being your conclusion. Outside of that, it seems to be working very well. I do think that you could create better coherence between 1 and 2. Um, the thing is that if you're given a task description that you think is fragmented, it's your kind of ungrateful job, but your job nonetheless as the writer to create the coherence anyway. So think about that for next time. If you get into the same kind of problem where you think that there are two kind of almost separate tasks that I need to complete, how you then stick them together, or at least then in your framing, the introduction, the roadmap of the text, say these are the 2 tasks that I'm going to do. At the end, I'm going to arrive at a conclusion based on something, just so that there is that the reader has an understanding of what's going to happen and why you structure the text the way that you do. I hope that makes sense. Also, it also kind of becomes evident when you see the introduction, or rather lack of introduction to part 2. You kind of start very much sort of in the middle of everything. Like, okay, there's no kind of introduction to what you're going to be doing in part 2. So maybe introduce some of the key theorists and key theories before going into them, because I mean, I know what we're talking about, but we're imagining a reader that has some knowledge about military affairs and is definitely able to follow an argument, but doesn't know the specifics. So some prior knowledge, but not deep knowledge. So it would be good for you to just introduce, these are the 3 theories that we're talking about. I'm going to compare and contrast them. I'm going to go into Warden's theory about the 5 rings and apply that to ISIL, and then you can go from that. It's a bit like in medias res, to borrow a term from literature, that you just begin right in the middle of everything. But you do arrive at a conclusion, and your voice, your sort of personal voice as an analyst, in this case, is heard, which is very good. And there is a logical progression, and you put forth your arguments, as I said before, in a very clear and straightforward manner. So I have no issue with your paragraphs at all. You know how to do that. I mean, you are obviously an experienced writer, so I expected that from you in the first place. So just in summation, give me an introduction to the text so I know what's going to happen, even though you may think it's going to be fragmented. See if you can frame it anyway so that I know what's going to happen, that I can follow along. And then a little bit more information so that this fictional reader knows what's what, basically. Yes, I think that's it from me for now. If there are any questions, you can always email me or we can talk about it on Friday when I see you next. Okay, bye for now.